So I'm Julie Decker. I work for Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation, which is providing organizational and financial management services to this new nonprofit called the Alaska Mariculture Alliance. Connie, are you able to share that presentation? Oh, I see it's coming up. Okay. So the Alaska Mariculture Alliance is a new nonprofit that is going to be spearheading the development and guidance of the mariculture industry in Alaska. Next slide, please. I always like to make sure we're on the same page when we're talking about the word mariculture. Next slide, Connie. So in Alaska, mariculture really means the enhancement, restoration, and aquatic farming of shellfish and seaweed. Finfish aquaculture, finfish farming is prohibited by state law, so that's not what we're talking about when we say mariculture. Next slide, please. So in the state, the governor had designated an Alaska Mariculture Task Force previously, and we did quite a bit of work through that task force, creating a statewide comprehensive plan and some other documents. The final report was delivered to the governor this summer, and June 30th, that task force sunsetted as it completed its work. That's when the Alaska Mariculture Alliance was stood up, and will be sort of taking the baton on behalf of the task force to continue with the development of the industry. Next slide, please. And there's quite a few documents on AFGF's website that are some of these sort of strategic planning documents that were created through the task force. Next slide, please, Connie.
I can't get it to go, and I don't know why. Julie, sorry.
Uh-oh. We always have these little glitches, don't we? Oh, there we go. So I just wanted to, for this group, talk about some indicators of progress, some things that have happened. So the new alliance, AMA, we have 90 new members. We are welcoming new members, particularly to this group as well. About 60 of those members are full members, 30 are associate members. In Alaska, we've also launched the Mariculture Map, which is a GIS system to help folks look for appropriate sites for new farms. And we're seeing more financial services going to farmers as well, including the Mariculture Revolving Loan Fund and the Agricultural Revolving Loan Fund. Next slide, please. There's a few, in the next few slides, these are included in that final report to the governor, but I wanted to pull a few things out to emphasize to this group. As we see in this slide, not all of these have been approved, but these are the new applications for leases in Alaska since 2017. Particularly not just the applications, but also the acreage is growing. And so this is a really good sign of future progress. Next slide, Connie. Another really cool thing is that we're seeing these new lease applications spread out in 3 regions across Alaska: Southeast, South Central, and Southwest, fairly evenly, a third, and a third, roughly. So this is another really good sign for the growth of the industry. Next slide, Connie. This is kind of a fun one. These are not sort of real hard data. This is more anecdotal data, but the state of Alaska has spent a lot of time and money. Actually, they hired a couple new staff to go through these new applications that they started seeing for new farms. And in that process, they've been they're creating a new application document and a lot of other tools that can be helpful. And so in that process, they've really cut the lease processing time for new applications about in half. So we're about down to about a year for processing time. So this is really good news for the future growth. Next slide, please. We have seen a huge demand for training. In the last couple of years, we've trained over 200 people in a 2 to 3 day workshop, and then others in a webinar. So these are just Alaskans and just in 2 years. So this is really good news that people are really interested. Next slide. And this is, again, round numbers, but this is just an example of the growth we've seen in harvest of kelp for commercial use since 2017, which was the very first harvest ever off of a kelp farm in Alaska. So we've got a good trajectory of growth going, and we hope to see that continue to grow quite a bit in the future. Next slide. I think this is the last slide. But the next steps for the Alaska Mariculture Alliance, we're going to be holding our first meeting this fall. We're looking to help expand seaweed processing in Alaska. We're starting to see a bottleneck in that area. And the University of Alaska is going to be hosting a mariculture conference in February in Juneau, excuse me. So stay tuned for that. There'll be more information about that, but it's scheduled for February 22nd through the 24th. And then we also hope we have one more piece of legislation to get passed to allow for shellfish enhancement, hopefully in January. And that's it for me. I'll put more information in the chat about the application for becoming a new member for Alaska Mariculture Alliance.